What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here, back with an update for the Quarter Arcade Challenge. Haven't made one of these videos in a couple of weeks. Have just been playing PGA, and it's been pretty uneventful. A lot of break-even weeks, small wins, small losses, so nothing really of interest to report. But this week, I'll show you the results, I'll show you where we stand, and then we're going to actually build some lineups, and we're going to do it in a new way. So stay tuned for that, but let's just look at the results real quick. And you can see this is now updated. I'm assuming you can see that. It is $115 profit for 41% ROI. Obviously, we love that. Nothing too much of interest over the last couple of weeks, but we're now up to 1,120 entries. That's pretty interesting. So that's probably, I think the Masters was the 20. So 11, 22, 23 different slates, something like that. So pretty slick. Okay, if you have followed this before, if you kind of heard my rants before, you know that I have a very complicated relationship with lineup optimizers. I think they're awesome. I think what Fantasy Cruncher, what Daily Fantasy Nerd, what they're able to accomplish is so cool. However, for me personally, I just can never find a good fit. The way that they calculate their lineups is not the way that I would do it. I'm very aware, I'm very adamant on the percentages exposure that I want to certain players, and it always feels like with lineup optimizers I just can't get there, and I'm never really satisfied. So those percentages that are very, very important to me, I can never seem to get. So what I did last week for the 20 max, the $4.20 max on DraftKings is I did them by hand, and I did kind of like a core lineup, and then I broke off a little bit of it. So we'll go through and do as many. I don't know how long this is going to take for 50 lineups, but we'll just jump right into it. So what we're going to do is we are going to make 50 lineups for the Quarter Arcade Challenge on DraftKings. So what you'll see is I've already I've got reserved entries in, and I've exported that lineup file, and I've cleared out all my placeholder players, and I'm going to go in and do this by hand. I have the players, all the players in the field on the right hand side. The players that are in bold are guys that I probably want more exposure to than the field, so they're guys I'm going to rely on. But you'll see how we're going to do this. So I'm going to start, and we'll probably do these in 10 lineup blocks. And I'm going to start with a lineup that I handmade. So this is a core that I'm pretty satisfied with. I don't think I need to go through each one of these players. I made a video for this week. If you follow me on Twitter, at DFS On Demand, you probably know who I like and who I don't like. Kevin Sway's been hot. Hudson Swafford will probably fly under the radar, and he fits this course really well. Harold Varner, just underpriced. John Rahm, I think, is awesome. Daniel Berger, a lot of key metric, fits this course. Same with Molinari, and I think everyone will forget Molinari even exists. So that's what I've done, is I've created basically a starter core, and I've left myself a few $100s. And what we're going to do here, so let me start putting these guys in. So Tway, Swafford, Varner, Rahm. So I'm literally just copying and pasting these in. As I do this, whoops, you'll be able to see how much exposure that we have to everyone. Okay, so we got 2% of John Rahm. So it was Rahm, Molinari, Tway, Varner, Swafford, and Berger. All right. So sometimes I'll put it in where it actually calculates like how much salary that I have left, but I'll just kind of do it in my head here. So bear with me. All right, we'll try to do it like that. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. So we've got, okay. So I know I have $300 left over in this lineup. So I'm just really going to go 2 people in each direction. So you'll see what I'm going to do here. I'll just drag down the first 5 guys. And now for Berger, we know we have 300 more than Berger. So we can take Berger to 86. So we can get Kisner. We get Lucas Glover. Both of those guys I like. So I'll add them into each lineup. And Kisner. We know these are valid lineups. Okay. So what we're doing is we're taking this core, and we're going to do this for each one of these players in our first group of 10. And that way we basically have a legit core of players, and we're just kind of accepting the volatility, right? We're just going to grab some guys above, some guys below, kind of see how this happens organically with guys that I like. But we'll have a lot of that core, and then we'll jump down to the next 10 lineups. So, okay, we got rid of Berger. Let's do this again, where now we'll keep Berger, but we'll get rid of Swafford. So we know the original lineup, we have 300 left over. Swafford is right here, 77, so we can go up to 8,000. I like McGirt, so we'll get McGirt in one of these. And then we will get... I will try to embrace a little volatility here, so I don't particularly like JB Holmes. He's a guy I would probably never... kind of intentionally put into a lineup, and the optimizers, what I do like about them is they do help with the volatility. I get access to guys that I would never roster myself, so I'm trying to emulate that. So I am going to roster Holmes here, because I know he's a guy that I wouldn't roster, but he kind of fits this, and we can expand out, and that's our Swafford spot that we've expanded. Okay, and we'll keep going here. So now we've done those guys, and we'll get Swafford and Berger back in here. Now Varner might be a little tough because he's 6,600, I think. He's way down here at the bottom. Or 63, so we can only go to 66. Graham McDowell and Stuart Sink are probably the guys I'm going to choose here. So we'll do that. And we'll get Graham McDowell. Okay. And you see how this is evolving here. So we have a couple more. So Rahm, Molinari, Varner, Swafford, Berger to get back into our regularly scheduled programming here. So okay. Now we have to get rid of Tway. So we can go up to 75 for Tway. So Griot, I think, is fine. This is kind of tough here. I don't love this. And we can go below, too, if there's a guy we see, of course. Let's get Griot in here. Wow, I mean, again, we can embrace volatility. Chris Stroud. What did he look like in our key stats here? If you can't see this. Chris Stroud is our 25th ranked golfer. He's actually one of the better value plays for us. So let's go with Chris Stroud. All right, then we'll go Rahm. Now we're getting rid of Molinari. Now here we've got some options. So we can go Haas at 95. I think that's fair. And then we can go, I'll probably go below. I probably won't go Bud Cauley. So we go Wes Bryan, Pat Perez, Rafa Cabrera-Bello. Let's go Wes Bryan. All right, and then the last one, we're going to get rid of Rahm. Get rid of Rahm twice here. So we have 11,000, so we can't get up to DJ, which means we're going to have to go down. So this is going to give us an extra 1,300 if I add Adam Scott in there, which I'm not entirely against. This is something that we probably haven't talked about too much thus far, where if there's any sport, I think PGA is the one that doesn't matter if you spend the entire salary cap. It's just not that important to me. 1,300 is probably a big difference to leave on the table, but for this exercise where we're taking our big core and we're just branching off of it, I'm going to do it. So we'll just take Adam Scott, and we'll take Phil, and Phil's a guy that I probably never would have picked. Okay. All right, so what we have now, and this should start to make sense here, if I can do this. Jeez. So we've got this core where now we've got Rahm, Molinari, Berger, Swafford, Tway, and Varner in 22% of our lineups. They will probably make appearances in some of these other lineups that we're going to make, but we just made 13 lineups where, you know, we replaced, we took our core and then replaced two, replaced one guy, took out one guy and replaced it with two different guys. So we've got 13 different lineups. So we'll probably do this, 3 more times? That'll get us like 52. We'll have to cut it short somewhere, but this is kind of the thought process. So now I've got those guys in 22%. Okay, so I won't bore you. I'll pause and come back, but you're getting the picture here. This is how we're going to build out these. This is how we're going to build out these lineups. So I'll do it, and then when I go through this whole process and get the percentages, we'll take a peek and we might have to adjust from there. But I'll pause and we'll come back when I've got 50 lineups. All right, so here we go. Here's the final product. We've got a bunch of different lineups in here. You can kind of see how they cascade down, and our final ownership is looking something like this. So what I like about this is I have fairly even exposure to everybody at the top. Okay, if one of these top 5 players wins this thing, I'm going to have 20-something% of my lineups are going to have the winner. These are the guys that basically I end up fading. Simpson, Haas, Cawley. I still have at least one lineup of all of them, but if one of those guys wins, this would probably be a disaster. Then you'll see again some more guys that I like here. If one of those guys comes out on top, that's great. And then you can see where the fades start. So like the first full fade is Young An. Okay, and at some point we're gonna have to start drawing some lines. No Kazai or no Furyk, none of these guys, but that's fine. You're hoping that basically one of these first 17 guys wins it. The top 17 most expensive players, if one of them wins it, I at least have one lineup with those guys. The majority of them I have vastly more. And if you've ever watched my videos, so what I do with the optimizer is I make sure I don't have 40%. I limit exposure to any one player at 40%. Let's see how we did here. 40%. That's unbelievable. So I wasn't even really trying to do that. That's just kind of how it showed up. So Kevin Tway, our leader here, 40%. So a lot of our week will hinge on Kevin Tway. But I did by hand what I could have done with an optimizer. Sure, it probably took me 20 minutes to do. So it took me 20 minutes to go hand for 50 lineups that I'm comfortable with. I know my exposure. I hand-picked it. Got the same probably level of distribution that I would have gotten. How many total players? 38. So when I was using an optimizer, I was probably in the 30 range. So I probably have 8 more players or so that I wouldn't have picked, and nobody over 40%, which is what my goal would have been anyway. So pretty happy with that result. This is what I'm going to put into the Quarter Arcade. It's 7:30 Pacific on Wednesday night, and another Quarter Arcade hasn't opened yet. So if one does, I'll pick 2 guys to go all in 100% on, but I don't see it yet. So there we go. That's kind of interesting. I handmade those lineups. We'll see how they do, and something I might feel comfortable doing in the future. So if you have any questions or comments, tweet me. It's @DFS on demand, or leave a comment below, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Good luck.